All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl. Most of you know me as Smiles Behind Lupus. And this is my co host, Wendy. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Wendy, and I have Wendy's Fun Lupus Awareness as well. And I'm also a
Awesome.
lupus warrior. Yes, ma'am.
Well, tonight is our first series of our Lupus Strength Circle warriors stories, telling their story from the autoimmune perspective. We're going to have lupus warriors. We're going to have other warriors on here that are also suffering from other autoimmune diseases. So hopefully, you guys will get to learn a lot. So our guest tonight is Miss Shamika Marty. Some of you guys know her as the pretty sick lupus chick.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I like that I'm the first one this year.
Yes,
Mhm.
2024. Yes. So that means the rest of the year is going to be absolutely amazing.
Yes.
All right. So, Shabika, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the meat of the interview questions.
I am from the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. I currently reside in the Bay Area, California. I moved here now going on 9 years. And my lupus journey, I feel like it's been all my life. I wasn't actually diagnosed or anything until about 12 years ago, but my mother had lupus, and then I have lupus, and my grandmother had severe rheumatoid arthritis. So autoimmune disease runs in my family. I've been an advocate before I was diagnosed in my mom's honor. She did pass away at age 44, but I still just make sure that I make lupus um, out there because so many people don't know, and a lot of people when they look at me they don't think that anything's wrong with me. So I try to get the stigma away from always having to look sick. In addition to that, I do still work. So I do cybersecurity. I do a lot of foundation work. I have three wonderful children. They're all old because I happen to, being, a caregiver wasn't enough for me. I just wanted to be a teen mom. So, throw that on there. And I've been with my husband for 25 years. We've been married for 19 years. And I have two dogs that you'll probably hear barking their head off and within this interview. That's just to sum up me. I mean, there's so many things, but we'll get into those questions.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. It's amazing how, so many of us, like, we thought we were alone, but it actually stemmed hereditary. My mom also had lupus, died at 55. Wendy, you have several family members and several of your children, correct?
I do. When I was diagnosed, there were six of my cousins, three on each side. We were all diagnosed around the same time within a 6 month period. And then both of my daughters have it.
That's
Yes.
interesting. I'm gonna talk to you on the side about that.
Yes,
That's one of
ma'am.
my advocacy things, genetic testing.
Okay.
Definitely. We all
Yes.
need it.
Right?
All right. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is um, how were you actually, diagnosed, and what was your reaction?
Um, how I was diagnosed, of course, it probably is almost like the typical story. It was a series of things that led up to it. There were a multitude of issues that weren't in like an immediate time span. It was just like, okay, this one year I broke out in hives for no reason. I mean, I could probably point to a reason. I was in a stressful situation. I had to move in with my in laws. And of course, I was like, oh my God. And I thought I attributed to that. I was like, I'm just breaking out in hives because my mother in law, it's like
Yeah.
everything they do. And then it was all of a sudden now I started having spasms out of nowhere. And every time they would just like, oh, nobody started to put on a map, like, okay, this. They were just like triaging, almost like a game of whack a mole. Okay, we got this, whack this down. You got this, got whack this down. So it took about 5, 6 years of different things happening to me. And then all of a sudden, when there was just one small period where there were three different things that happened. And they were like, well, maybe, but we test you every year. So because I knew that there was autoimmune diseases in my family, my aunt had MS, my grandmother rheumatoid arthritis, and my mom. So I kept asking them every year, your normal labs, they do check your cholesterol, check your sugar, do all that stuff. I was like, add on their lupus test every year. And when I couldn't taste anything and I was having really bad back spasms and I couldn't open up my hands all at the same time, I was like, this is lupus. And they're like, no, we already tested you last year. You're just trying to manifest it. And I was like, dude, I really don't want to have it. I'm just telling you, I think I have it now. Like it wasn't showing up before, but I think if you test me now, it'll show up now. And they fought me on it. And I had to throw in there, like, I pay for insurance. I know my rights. You do what I ask.
Right.
So in between that, they were still like, okay, well, I need you to see an orthopedic doctor before the back spasms, and I need you to do this. And my best friend is a nurse, so I'd asked her on the side, knowing what medications usually is treated with autoimmune disease. I said, can you get me some prednisone? Because they keep saying I have allergies, I'm having trouble swallowing, and I can't taste anything. If I take this stuff, because like there's no reason why I would just all of a sudden have allergies at age 30, like out of nowhere. And I took it and I was like, okay, everything's starting to relax. So I went to the one doctor and he saw my x-rays and he's like, why are you here? And I said, look, I don't know. My doctor told me that I'm having back spasms and I needed to get an x-ray. So what does the x-ray say? And he was like, there's nothing on your x-ray. Can you describe what your symptoms are? And I started to describe what was going on. And he was like, it's funny because you sound like my sister. My sister has lupus. And as soon as he said that, I was like, they don't believe me. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I already asked them and I have a history of it in my family. And he was like, well, I'll write it up and put it in a chart. Literally, it was like the universe. As soon as I was walking to my car, the my primary care office called me and they're like, yeah, so we ran that test like you told us to, and you're gonna have to see a rheumatologist. And I'm like, okay. And I wanted to like go off, so I just hung up the phone because my mom taught me if I don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. So I stopped her from getting all of the business. I was just like, I'm not gonna. She's just innocent in this. I'm just gonna click. I'm gonna sit here and think about this for 5 minutes. And I called my husband and I was like, it finally happened. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, yep, I was right. I have lupus. And I started sobbing for literally about 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, well, she taught me what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
It's not why me, it's try me. They got her, they're not going to get me. And I just reversed it. And then I did my first YouTube video and I was talking about everything. And from that point on, I was just like, I was in boot camp, taking care of my mom since I was 10. So my story is a little bit different where, I'm exposed to it and seeing it and seeing her not say things to the doctors and picking things up. And when that happened, there wasn't the internet. So it was like, all right, I'm going to age myself. Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay. And I'm just in the library reading stuff and trying to get through everything. And now that makes me very, very experienced in what's going on and helping to educate people because I don't want them to go through what my mom went through. She passed away at 44. And she kind of like, she was the type, there are people that want to talk and there's people that want to just go into a hole. Please don't notice me. That was her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, nope, you're going to know. Everybody's going to get educated today. You're going to learn today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Wow. That's awesome to, just to hear. But like I said, it is not common for someone to know the experience because you started off so young with helping your mom.
Right.
I can relate. My mom went through being paralyzed when I was 5, multiple strokes before she was 40. So I got to see a lot of that, and I saw a lot of it where doctors said it's in your head because
Yep.
lupus, it was around, but it wasn't around. So I
Right.
totally get it. What is one of the most common misconceptions that people have about someone living with autoimmune disease?
The way they look. I travel a lot. If you already haven't like gone on my page, I travel. And right now, this is the only week that I have off before next week. I just continuously travel for the next 5 months. Um, and people don't like that I get to board first. Just because I look okay does not mean that I can walk 5 miles. And some of these airports are very long.
Yeah.
So when they see me roll up in a wheelchair, they're like, excuse me, where do you think you're going? I'm first class. And I give them a double whammy. Guess what? I'm first class too. And I'm handicapped. So I get the board before you. Sorry. And, I get the stares and I get the looks. The worst is when I go to the grocery store. I guess handicapped people aren't allowed to have nice cars. I should be
Mhm.
driving like a creeper van or something and like just roll up. I've had the cops called on me a couple times and then they don't even apologize. They just run my license to make sure that the placard actually is registered to me.
Mhm.
I've gone with my daughter. I told her to run in and get my prescription medication. And this lady looks at me and everything, and she calls the cops. And I was like, oh, this is great. So the cop comes, runs my license, hands it back to me, and says, all right, bye. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't have time for this. I've had an old man say, if you were parked in my senior citizen community, your car would have been towed. And I was like, no, it wouldn't. He's like, because you're faking it. And it gets to the point that, like, my husband, I have to tell him all the time, like, honey, this happens all the time.
Mhm.
You don't have, everybody does not have to look the part.
Right.
Um, it's the same thing when people have a mental illness. It's almost like an autoimmune disease. Okay. Nobody, as soon as you read about him, like, oh my God, I didn't know he was going through that. I didn't know he had depression. There is no look. There
No.
is no look. Sometimes I've been where my kidneys were failing and I had actually, it's coming up on my 1 year kidney anniversary. My legs were so swollen, I looked like I had tree stumps because I was retaining a lot of water. You see me on those days. Okay. Then the next day, it's okay. It's not consistent. And then
Right.
I also have to reference, I mean, does Selena Gomez look sick? Does Nick Cannon look sick? Does Tony Braxton look sick? I mean, we could still go on and then they'll say, well, they have money. Well, you know what? There isn't enough money in this world to save you from death. So there's that.
Yep, I love that.
Right.
All right, Wendy, you go with your question.
Mhm. Um. Hang on, I can't see. Hold on, I gotta focus.
It's the brain fog. That's the other misconception that we don't have brain fog. I mean, like, if I
Right,
didn't have any type of coffee, I would just be in space.
girl.
Yeah.
I'm coming down off my double shots. So, um, in what ways has your social life been influenced by lupus, and how do you
Good
get
question.
navigate social situations?
Um, I used to overcompensate by like, I don't want them to exclude me
Right.
from any of the plans. So I would show up to everything. And even though my husband would be like, you don't have to do this. And I'm like, yes, I do. I have to be reliable. I don't want them to exclude me in the group chat, like I don't want to scroll when I'm laying in bed near death and I see them having fun. And I think I could have been a part of that. Why did they invite me? To the point that when I started to regulate it and be like, I can't be there for everything,
Right.
and I cancel last minute because sometimes I don't know. I'll make the plans on Monday and on Friday I feel like crap.
Right.
And I don't want to have to take enough pills to kill a horse just to make a cameo appearance.
Right.
Some of my friends, not all the ones that like really, really understand. I canceled on one about an hour into us meeting. And unfortunately, it was a friend that happened to go back to the East Coast and he lives on the East Coast. But he was in Maryland and I was in New Jersey. So it's like a distance. And he was like, oh, I'm going to be, here for an event. Maybe we can meet up after. I said, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden my stomach was like, I don't know why you said sure. I'm going to mess up your whole night. And
Yep.
I'm like, okay. And I'm texting like, I really don't feel well. I'm trying. I'm going to take something. And if it works, I'll definitely be there. Then I couldn't make it. And they were pissed off about it. So recently I went back to his area and I was in DC for a speaking engagement. And he flaked out on me on purpose. And I was like, he should be the last one. He actually had cancer. And I thought that he would understand. But it doesn't really make a difference. I was like, I would never do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Even though, and my husband, if he ever watches this, he's going to be like, why'd you throw me in there? Sometimes he'd be like, I don't want to go. Can I just tell my friends that you're sick? I'm like,
Oh, all the time.
oh,
Yes.
it's not easy. It's just easy. It's believable.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right, because it's your friends, because I don't care about them. Fine. You can use me for stupid, but please don't let that get around.
yeah, it's definitely like I don't think people understand. I even get to the point to where I don't even post as much like the exciting things. Like
Right.
it's just, the
Oh yeah,
stigma.
they'll use it against you. And I have to put
Mhm.
that on there. Just because I did a thing yesterday doesn't mean I can do a thing today.
Right.
And what you don't understand is like my husband will always say to me, you go on these girls' trips, and I'm the one that ends up having to take care of you because you'll come back and be like, oh, I'm dead. And I was trying to hang, but I couldn't hang. And
Yeah.
I'm hemmed up for 3 days, but I'll still show it. So the reason why I have a lot of followers is because I do post a lot and I
Mhm.
show the reality of like, hey, I'm having a good time living my life. And when people say, oh my God, I wish I could be like you. And I'm like, well, not the highlight reel. You need to
Yeah.
take in the whole thing. So when you see
Right.
me tomorrow, I'm in bed looking like death.
Mhm.
That comes with it too. Okay. There's highs and lows. It's not
Yeah.
always, I'm not showing you like, she's living the life. Oh, she's doing the thing because she's sick. And I will post every time I'm in the hospital.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
will.
Yeah, it's
Right.
definitely it's a catch 22 because you get that all the time. And I've sent a someone that I've maybe had a meeting with that morning. They were like, "Oh, you look amazing," but I think you're running on pure adrenaline. And
Right.
so it's like once you're done, I know with me, once I'm done with an event or somewhere, my body just it's like the life sucks out of me. And then I'll just here's a selfie. This is what I really, look like 10 minutes later. Yeah, I like that you do share your life, the good, the bad. And that is needed to try hopefully to start breaking the stigma that people put on us and other people with invisible illnesses. So
Mhm.
talk
Mhm.
about your I know you just said you almost at your 1 year kidney anniversary. So tell us about that journey. Like, was this your first transplant or
Mhm. It was my first transplant. It was like a little bit of well, it still is PTSD until I make it to March. After March, I'm sorry, because I'm 44. My mother passed away at 44. She had a kidney transplant. I had a kidney transplant, but hers ended up rejecting after 7 years. And so the whole thing of just getting a kidney transplant, my uncle had one too, but he has an autoimmune disease that you can acquire, not just one that's just like, oh, I don't know where.
yeah.
He did get something, and
Mhm.
so I already knew everything that went with it, but my story was a little bit different because I didn't wait as long as most people. If you know about kidney transplants, they usually make you do dialysis before they even consider you being a candidate, which is crazy because you're like, I need a kidney. Like, why do I have to go through a trial period before I can actually get a kidney? So usually between 5 to 7 years, you have to put in the time. I never spent a day on dialysis. I paid out of my own pocket to do stem cell transplants for 4 years to keep my body alive. Of course, the doctor was like, "You're gonna die," and I'm like, "Okay, sure." I've done the research. I mean, I'm that type of person. I'm extremely resourceful, and if I can avoid toxic things, because they tried to give me Cytoxin and Rituxan. Rituxan didn't do anything, but Cytoxin was the real deal chemotherapy. And I lost 40 pounds. I was to the point where I was throwing up water. I was losing my hair. A lot of people don't know that autoimmune disease, they treat cancer patients and autoimmune diseases kind of the same way, regardless if you have lupus or MS. And so I was going through the process, and even if you don't do dialysis, you have to do extensive tests. They had to take 43 vials of blood. And then going through the process initially, I kept thinking, I need to find someone that is a match for me. My kids immediately were like, "Mom, sign me up," and I was like, "Oh heck no, you're not doing it. I'm just gonna find somebody, and there'll be a match." And then, of course, because I have 50 other diseases on top of lupus, they're like, "It's gonna be hard to find a match. You have high antibodies, blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Nothing's impossible." And so all of a sudden, I saw online that it was called the Kidney Exchange Program, which, again, funny, a lot of people don't know about. So basically, that means for the listeners out there, if you have somebody that is willing and able to donate a kidney on your behalf, again, on your behalf, they do not have to be a match for you. You swap with someone else that's in need of a kidney. So basically, my husband said, I will do it for you. And in addition to that, the added bonus is you move to the top of the list because you have somebody that's going to give. So you're saving multiple lives. It's not just me having a match with someone and it's just me solving the problem. We're solving two, me and that other person. So they have a willing participant and I have a willing participant. And it took 2 years because he had to qualify. Like as soon as you do the survey, I started to notice if you put in there you're 5'3" and like 150 pounds, they'll automatically say you're obese. And it's like proportionate to what you are. Like you look at this person, they're not obese, but they go by your body mass index, BMI. So on this chart, you have to qualify with all these strict things. So I started getting smart about it. I was like, don't put your actual weight, make yourself like really skinny. And so I had, because my husband had initially filled it out and he's built like a linebacker. And so I was like, don't put your actual weight, honey, deduct like 30 pounds because your height and your weight do not match. It doesn't like, put a buffer in there for having muscles. And he had to go through the testing. And then I couldn't understand why the testing that I had to go through, the blood test, fine. The chest x-ray, fine. They make you do a stress test, which I had done before. But at this point, I'm stage 5 kidney disease. I can barely breathe and run. And when I start to run, I get more fluid in my lungs. I'm not my lungs, my legs. And so they were like, well, if you don't make it to this. So I failed the first time and I was like, okay. They're like, okay, we're gonna have to reschedule it. Then I failed again and I was like, I'm not coming back again. What do I need to get it to? And all I kept thinking of in my mind is my mom and my kids. And I was like running my heart out to the point where she's like, you're almost there, you're almost there, you're there. And I like stopped. And like those videos where you see people like fly off the treadmill. That was basically me. I was like, slide off. And I was like, I don't care. I need to breathe. I'm just laying here. And I was like, I just needed to make it. And that was the final test. So then once they have a board to review all of your tests, your medical history, all this stuff. It's like being accepted into a cult. They said, okay, you are approved. So I was approved in day before Thanksgiving. And then from Thanksgiving until February, they initially got a call that there was a couple that matched, but they were 98.9% a match for me. So originally they got my hopes up and were like, it's going to be perfect. So all these new places contacted me because we were going to do it on Valentine's Day of last year. And everybody was ready for the story. We were going to go on TV, a couple gets a kidney on Valentine's Day, true love, blah, blah, blah. And 2 weeks before, they were like, yeah, we thought they were like a match because we had to test it 3 times. And the third one came out as 98.9. So no. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I went to visit my son in LA. And most people don't know, like California is so big that they're like, why don't you just drive to LA? I'm like, that's 6.5-hour drive where I could take a 45-minute flight. So I flew down to LA and I took him and his fiance out to dinner and we're sitting and it's 10 o'clock at night and I see this strange number. Now my other 2 kids are home and I'm like, I hope they're not in an accident or anything. That's the first thing I'm thinking of. And they're like, is this Shamika, Marty? And they were asking me to verify this. So it's making the call even more sketchier. And then she's like, well, I'm calling from the Kidney Foundation and letting you know that we have a potential match and you're going to have to get here at 6 o'clock in the morning. Mind you, it's 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, okay, sure. And she's like, I'm going to call you back. We're going to take another test. Unfortunately, the kid was, I think he was 20 years old in Connecticut, was in a accident and he was on life support. So he was an organ donor and they were testing it. And she said, I'll call you back. So I'm like, okay, I'm on antsy and I'm trying to eat the food and everything. And she calls me back at midnight. And she's like, all right, it's a match. I need you here by 6 o'clock in the morning. Then I said, okay, fine. I'll be on the first flight out. And the flight gets canceled. And they bumped it. And I'm like, so I had to stop my husband because he was trying to kill the people behind the desk. And he was like, she has to get there now. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, it'll work out. It'll work out. And luckily, she actually called me in the midst of him telling off everybody. And she's like, oh, the family wants a couple more hours. So you have some time. Okay. And then I took the next flight out. We hurry up and rushed and went home like we're having a baby. Like you're supposed to have a bag ready, and I didn't have a bag ready, so I called my daughter and said, "Put this stuff in a bag for me. We're gonna have to go." And I forgot to eat, so I didn't eat until like the next day. But I sat there, and they were like, "Okay." They didn't actually fly the kidney up; they're helicoptering it in. It'll take about 3 hours. So I'm just sitting there chilling, and it didn't happen until 7 o'clock at night. It was supposed to be 7 o'clock in the morning, but it was 7 o'clock at night. The guy comes in transport, and he's like, "We need to go now." And it's okay, sure, I'm ready. And he's literally running at top speed. And I have a video on my Instagram where I'm watching him run me through these halls, and then within 5 minutes, knock me out. Um, had complications. I kind of died for a minute and a half. When I woke up, when it was done, I woke back up, and I guess the anesthesia wore off, and everybody, I could see people moving, and I just started all of a sudden all the pain, and I woke up and I was shaking the rails of the bed, and they're like, "What's wrong? You got a kidney." And everybody starts clapping. And I'm like, "I can feel the kidney." And they're like, "Yeah, it's working." I'm like, "No, I can literally feel the kidney. I can feel everything. I can feel it." And I just kept saying, "I can feel it. I can feel it." And they start rushing over and putting drugs in me, hoping that it would bring everything down. And then kept seeing my blood pressure go up and up and up and up. And then they finally were like, knock her out and put the mask on me. And that knocked me completely out. And I didn't even know that I had died until I woke up. They intubate you, they put the tube down your throat, so they jam it down. When they jammed it down, when I woke up, I was having trouble speaking. I was like, why does it hurt in my throat now? And they're like, well, so there's that. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. So,
Wow.
how many lives am I on now?
Wow. What a
Yeah,
story.
it was great. I don't mind telling that story because I'm here today. Because I told my
Mhm.
kids, every milestone that I've been through. Graduating college, she didn't get a chance to see my third child, and getting married and all that stuff. She's not here for it. And I said, I will be there for that, for you guys. That is my mission.
Yeah. Wow. What a story, man. That's what, yeah. Because I told Wendy the other two interviews that I've done, it was Emmett. He's on the
Yes, I know.
transplant list.
Actually, I'm
Yeah.
trying to get. It's funny you say his name because when you think about lupus and the circuit of lupus, we're like
Mhm.
one of the top three in there.
Yeah.
And he was one. I left out the part that when my husband was going to the front desk, Emmett calls me, and he's like, "Just relax, it'll work out and everything." And he was the first one, and just like as soon as I text him, I was like, "I got a kidney," and he
Yeah.
calls me instantly, and now he needs a kidney. So because my husband didn't give up his kidney, I had
Mhm.
called him and I said, he's still able to give a kidney. He could do it in your honor. So I haven't heard back from his coordinator, but I've been trying to do the same thing for him because,
Yeah.
we both help each other out. It's between me, him, and um, Marissa, who is a Lupus Chick official, that are like
Mhm.
the top three where people
Mhm.
are always asking us to speak about lupus.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. For me, 2023 has definitely been a harder time, I feel, for Warriors because I've never seen so many that
Mhm.
were on transplant list or recently getting transplants. And I was just like, whoa. Um, I had kidney failure, but mine resolved itself, thank God. So I
Right.
never, got to that stage, but
Mhm.
it's just crazy how 2023 has been.
Mhm.
So I'm probably gonna ask one more question. So let's talk about like the treatments that you do to manage your symptoms. Like I know the kidney was an issue, so with the transplant, were you able to come off of certain things? Which I know with transplants you have to be on a lot more
Mhm.
to prevent rejection. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
As soon as I left the hospital, I was taking 70 pills a day. It was crazy. It had to be timed, and that was like the biggest thing for me because what attributed to my mom's kidney failing so quickly was she didn't prioritize taking her pills on time. Um, and she decided to go back to work, and work was the postal service. So, working with postal service, you have to be out all the time. And she would just be like doing mail and forgetting about doing anything else. And she'd be like, oh, I missed that dose. Well, let me double up on this dose. And for kidney medication, it's not what you're supposed to do. So I got it down because the issue that I was having with my kidneys was my blood pressure was out of control. Prior to the kidney transplant, I was taking 5 different blood pressure medications plus a patch just to get it to 170. My blood pressure, actually, the highest it was 288 over 120. And people were
Mhm.
looking at me like, how are you able to talk? And I said, baby, I've been functioning like this for so long. I don't even know anything different. And it sounds
Right.
really sad. So when I left the hospital, they were like, we're going to keep you on this until your blood pressure starts going down. So it was mostly the blood pressure medication that we started weaning off. Right now, I only take 2 just to be safe. They want to take me off of 1. But at least now, like, I don't get anxiety because if you know anything about being sick, as soon as your blood pressure is over 150, they're like, oh my God. And then as soon as you get to a 200, you need to go to the emergency room. And I'm like, have you
Right.
read my chart?
Right.
No,
Right.
no, you probably haven't. I said, oh, you're new because I don't know your face.
Mhm.
It's not like that. It's not textbook. Okay. Everything's not textbook. And I said, let me just tell you. No, no, no. I have to go to the doctor. And I was like, all right, do your thing. The doctor said, okay. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm not freaking out. And even if you told me to go to the ER, I'm not going to go. I know my body's like, you know,
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
drive you half dead. And they're like, how did you get here? I drove myself. Like, I'm used to this.
Right.
But yeah, I'm down to 22 pills a day. So I have to take 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. And then also when you have a kidney transplant, it's not just the anti-rejection ones, it's also to make sure you don't get any infections because you're more susceptible to infections.
Mhm.
So I weaned off of that, and then like COVID's kind of creeping out, and they're getting all antsy. And I was like, I'm on a plane every other week, right? Like if I was going to catch something, I would have caught it by now. Thank God I haven't. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, the lupus medication, I was already on prednisone. Prior
Mhm.
to that, I was on Benlysta. I was doing infusions. I haven't had to take any of the infusions, thank God. It's calmed down my lupus. It hasn't calmed down everything else. So it's like everybody thinks, oh, you got a kidney transplant. That took care of everything. I'm like, oh no, honey, I got a list of 20 things. That took off one. That
Yeah.
crossed. I still
Right.
have other things. I still have my lung capacity is low. I still have issues with my legs and spasms and random seizures and all the other stuff. And I was like, I'm just not going to give you the whole list because that sounds depressing because your face goes from cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just look, I'm like, all right, we'll stop it right there.
Yeah. Or someone tells you like, man, I'm tired just after you saying everything that's wrong with
Yeah.
you.
Right.
I said, like, it's depressing. And you're like, you need to slow down. And I said, honestly, for me, and I'm only speaking for me, maybe it helps some other people. When I say busy, I don't think about the
Yeah.
Right.
impending doom that's already in my body that's trying to
Right.
be like, hey, hello, I'm here. And I'm just like ignoring it. So I just keep myself busy all the time because when
Yeah.
people say relax and I do relax, everything starts to be like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Let's take her
Right.
out. And
Mhm.
so the busier I am until it gets like really, really bad,
Right.
then I don't have to think about it. So helping other people, doing a million things just keeps me going and keeps me. I see other people where they retreat and then they're always depressed. They're always, I don't feel like getting out of bed. I didn't take a shower today. I get it because there were days before where I just saw that rhythm of, I don't want to be like that. I
Yeah.
just can't. And it's a matter of, even if I have an illness or not, you can get yourself into a deep depression. People don't talk about the mental aspect of it. You
Right.
know, add on life and then having a chronic illness and multiple illnesses and, you know, having kids and managing a house and managing a career.
Right.
That's just hard in itself. Okay. I mean, just trying to live these days in 2023 um, was hard, like you said, for a lot of people. Now it's
Mhm.
2024 and it's still the same thing. Honestly, when people say new year, new me, and I'm like, same body, same me. It's change.
No,
Okay. I didn't get a chance to change my body. You know, it isn't like,
exactly.
yeah, I'm gonna go sign up for fitness and all this other stuff. And I'm like, no. When they come out with that technology to give me another body, then we could talk.
I know, right?
Right.
All right, Wendy, do you have one more question? For
Sure. Um, let's see. I was gonna say, the next question I had was, how do you handle your stress?
Multiple ways. It isn't keeping busy. That's like one of the ways. The other one is
Right.
the toxic way where I just let me get on a plane and fly away. Like it's not gonna follow me. At
Right.
least if I'm going to suffer, I'd rather suffer in a nicer place. um,
Right.
okay, and like we're just gonna, you know, I can't change me, but I can change the scenery. It feels a lot better when you're in a nicer place. Like I love my house and everything, but I still associate that with like, God, I gotta come home and do laundry. I gotta come home and cook, and I gotta come home and do this.
Mhm.
Um, I love massages, and unfortunately, I can't get like a regular massage like everybody else. When you have a chronic illness or anything systemic, getting a regular massage will impair you. And I've tried to
Right.
tell, like, as soon as they come in, they're like, and
Yeah.
I feel like they're sharpening up the elbow, and some little lady's like dropping it while I'm like, "What are you doing? What
Right.
is you're doing backflips on my back? Why? It's not what I
Yeah.
wanted. I don't know why you're doing that. Let me tell you, I thought I wrote it in the paper. They asked you how you wanted it. I was like, I said soft."
Yeah.
And I come out and it's like my one girlfriend paid in for me to have a massage, and I come out like this. We had a dual massage, and it said, I appreciate you trying to do this, but um I'm gonna need a week to stretch everything out because she hurt me. And I need the lymphatic or the it's called the raindrop technique. I highly recommend it if you have anything systemic. So it's more essential oils and you're working on your spine.
Okay.
Very,
Mhm.
very, very smooth and hot stones and stuff. Um, that's the kind that I like. So I'm very particular, even though it's like, oh, well, this is the top of the line place. And I'm like, yeah, they're used to sharpen up the elbow and dropping it like it's
Yeah.
hot on somebody's back. That's not me. That's not me.
Mhm. No,
Um,
I'm
these are my
glad that you said that, but like a lot of warriors don't know that when it comes to something you think is relaxing and
Right.
it's not for us.
no,
It's
it
not.
really isn't. It's so many times I've had to be like softer, and they're still like doing them like soft. I'm like, just like I'm touching a baby kind of thing, okay? Just
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
bit. Not because I'm little, it's because you're going to hurt
Yeah.
me.
Right.
And people
Um,
don't understand how sensitive our skins, is just for something like a light touch sometimes can make
Mhm.
you jump out of your skin almost.
Right.
But they don't understand that, sensitivity with
sensitivity with skin, learning about lupus, that there is a type of lupus that's discoid lupus that has to do with the
Right.
skin. I don't have that, but even
Right.
having sensitivity to, I go out to the beach. I love being by the water. So that's another therapeutic thing for me. However, I grew up in a town, it was a very small town, and I was like the only black person in every class, which means all my friends are not as dark as I am. With that being said, the people I travel with, oh, let's go get some sun. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be Blade's little daughter. Okay. On top of that, I need to like not be in the sun because I will literally break out in hives. So I said, yeah, we can, you guys can be on the sun. I'm gonna be bougie and I'm gonna be in that cabana over there, and
Mhm.
y'all can be out there. It's the way I am. I was like, it's not me being bougie. I mean, part of it is, but the other part is, I don't want to get darker and I don't want to suffer because even if I don't break out in hives, I get like sun poisoning. if I don't wear a hat and SPF 2000.
Yep.
So there's that.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Totally get it.
Yep.
We get it.
Totally.
Because I'm trying to tread softly. Like, look, most of the people I hang out with are not black. They're either Asian or they're white, and they don't get it all the time. They're always, oh, don't you want to get some sun? And one of my friends when I was living back in Jersey, she's like, oh, I don't want to go to the tanning bed by myself. You want to come with me? And I said, if they have a detanner, if they have a
I'm
detanner
done.
inside, do you know what you're looking at? Do you forget sometimes? I mean, I don't know how, but
I love it.
Yes. But people don't like something so simple as the sun. Like, but you have some warriors, of course, that they thrive in the sun and they, they're not as severe.
Mhm.
But for others, it is, I have discoid and systemic. And before I ever was diagnosed, even when I was younger, I was an indoor kid for the most part.
Mhm.
So I would always chalk it up if I was outside for an extended period of time. I was like, oh, I just, I'm never in the sun, so I'm just really drained. And I felt like I had the flu, and I'm just like, oh, I probably was out there too much. And then, of course, back then you're not wearing sunscreen or
Right.
anything.
Right.
But now it's like, oh, I was like, well, okay, God, like you knew I didn't like outside, so but you didn't have to
yeah,
give me lupus.
um, it was really bad. Like half my family is from Texas, my mom's side of the family. So
Oh
before
wow.
she got like really, really sick, she would take us to the beach, and then all of a sudden she stopped taking us to the beach. And like I said, most of my friends were all white, and they told me, when we go out in the sun, we put on baby oil. Now, mind you, I was 12 years old. I didn't pick up on any of the fact that baby oil was going to cook me. So I went to Texas, and how sometimes people ask, do black people burn? Yes, we do. You want to
Yes.
like lather up some chicken and you want to get that crisp on the skin. That was me going in the summertime to Texas, 110 degrees, and wondering why my nose is cracking because I put baby oil on. And yeah, that was great. And I came back and I was like, Mom, and she said, you're the one thinking, I don't know what you'd be thinking. And I said, I don't know. But they told me, and it's just like, I'm just gonna walk away from you.
Come back later on that one.
I didn't know. I mean, it really was like I tell my kids this because they don't live this life that I had to go through. I said, you don't understand what mommy went through. On top of the fact that I was a caregiver and had to do all this other stuff, I swear to God, they had tortured me because they were like, "Oh, you don't iron your hair?" And I said, "No." What do you mean iron my hair? Like literally put it on the ironing thing and just like, yeah. And I did that. It's like singe. Oh my
Oh Lordy.
God. So, because my mom didn't want to talk because she, had bigger things to deal with. And that's why I try to be like explaining everything to my kids all the time that I just went through my childhood. It's just it was a lot.
That is
And it sounds like
hilarious.
common sense, but you don't get it when I said my graduating class was 334 people, of which only 15 were actually non-white. Okay. When I say non-white, I mean there was like
I
one
guess.
Hispanic, there was maybe two Indians and an Asian, and like broke it down. Everybody else was a half breeds, what we said back then. But I'm like, yeah, it was very traumatizing and learning a lot of things that now I'm just like,
Yeah.
I could have made things a lot worse.
Yeah. So how does your family handle you having lupus? And even though I know you guys travel and stuff, but how do they handle it, from behind the scenes of the camera?
Um, because I do project management. I'm a project manager by trade and also just personally. They kind of try to make me tone down. I used to be that one where I had an itinerary and you would need a vacation after my vacation because I'd be like, we're going to maximize as much time possible and do all the things. And they would see me stress out. And the only one that would really, really see me is when I returned to my room was my husband and be like, why do you do that? Why do we do 3 activities today? So I've learned to turn it down, and also my kids will be like, "Mom, we don't have to do this because I'm trying to compensate for the fact that when I was younger, we couldn't do anything because my mom didn't have energy, and my grandmother, we had to lug her around because she was bedridden, so she really couldn't do anything either. So it's like I know I was starved for the fact that I couldn't take normal vacations, and I don't want my kids to feel that way. So I know I overcompensated, but they understand more and they're happy that I'm just there.
Yeah.
Even the one time I was in Hawaii and my legs were really, really big. So every hour I'd have to go back to the room and put my legs up against the wall so that the water would drain. And they're like, okay, we can go out and go do this. We can go have dinner. And to the point where once I got up, I couldn't even put pressure on my feet. So I had to run a wheelchair. And these kids, I was like, I thought you guys loved me. They didn't want me to get in the wheelchair at first because they wanted to pop wheelies in it. And then they're all around popping wheelies and everything. I'm like, guys, I kind of need that chair. So then they're like, oh, okay. And we're walking through the streets of Hawaii and they just push me in the traffic. And we're like, look at mom go. And are you guys any traffic? There's nothing coming by, mom. It's like wheeling like a movie, just running away, wheelchair, me in it and everything. So I like that they do help me, but they also try to ground me. They're like, mom, just stop. You don't have to prove
Yeah,
anything. We're just happy you're here.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we head out, what is one thing you would tell a lupus warrior that's newly diagnosed, that sees this video, that, has that feeling of what the heck just happened? What would you say to encourage them to, not give up?
Two things. Exactly what I said to myself is not why me, because everybody goes into that pity party like, oh my God, why me? And I'll get messages, I just got diagnosed, am I gonna die? And I give them the truth. Yeah, no, it doesn't mean it's gonna be from this. You can
Right.
die going to the grocery store. You could die in a car crash. So honey, don't chop it up to that. And then let your mess be your message. There's other people that want to hear it. And the word message, it has mess. I am a hot mess. And I embrace it. I try to, I'd rather laugh than cry. So I make it, comedic and bring out things that when you're a sick person, you have to realize there's no humility. You know how many people have seen me naked in the hospital and just like,
Right.
oh, whip it out. And I'm like, I'm paying for this because I have insurance. You should be paying me. You get to see all this. So just like I said, hot mess. Voice it out. Let it be your message. I am thriving. I am getting through this. Turn that negative into a positive. And it isn't as easy as I say, like, oh, it's not that easy to be positive. I know it's not. I'm not shooting rainbows out of my butt every day. But in the grand scheme of things, any day above ground is a great day. Okay.
Right.
It is what it is.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for coming. And of course, if there are any other lupus or autoimmune warriors that would like to share your story for our Warrior Journey series, just send
Right.
us a DM. And
Right.
Shamika, thank you. And hopefully one day we'll get to meet in person. I'm in Florida, or me and Wendy are both in Florida.
But we're
Oh,
both
yeah.
in
What
Florida.
part? What part? I have a house out there.
So
Pensacola.
we're in Pensacola. We're on the
Oh,
Alabama line.
yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
Um, near Orlando, Winter Haven.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. My husband's family's in West Palm. We're gonna be actually in Hollandale, Aventura Beach area for the
Okay.
first part of February.
Isn't that
So
near Miami?
like Fort Lauderdale, kind of
Oh, okay.
close to Miami, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably like a 15-minute to Miami kind of thing. So
Hmm.
yep. Well,
Gotcha.
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you
nice meeting
guys.
you.
Nice
Nice
meeting
meeting you
you.
too. And good
Um,
Good
luck
night.
to both of you. I will be following,
you
watching.
as well.
I gotta get better on back on Smiles Behind Lupus.
Yeah.
I've been
Same
slacking.
here. Same here. We gotta get motivate each other.
Yes.
Got it.
All right. Good night, ladies.
Good
Good
night.
night.